Unbelievable truths about President McKinley. Hidden lies exposed that changed history forever. Clara Donovan's heart raced as she brushed the dirt from the old oak chest. It sat tucked away in her father's workshop, a remnant of forgotten times. "What secrets do you hold?" she whispered. Anticipation coursed through her veins. She knew she wouldn't find toys or trinkets. She sought inspiration, something to kindle the fire of her dreams of becoming a historian. With trembling hands, she opened it, revealing an array of letters. The first was from President McKinley himself, the neat script instantly captivating her. But as she read, horror clawed at her gut. This was no ordinary correspondence. It held truths that could shatter lives. Growing up in a town choked by the smoke of factories, Clara lived alongside the struggles of her community. The whispers of doubt from neighbors haunted her. A historian? Nonsense! They'd scoff, their laughter biting deep into her ambitions. Yet, Clara clung to her dreams like a lifeline, inspired by her father's sweat-soaked shirt and calloused hands. The way he bore the weight of the world with every day's toil. If he could endure for them, then she could forge a path for their future. She flipped through more letters. The words painted a grim picture. Decisions made in halls of power were entangled with the lives of working families, her family included. Clara's heart pounded as the implications washed over her. This was bigger than her. This was about justice and history. She had to learn more, had to understand the links between their suffering and the lofty promises made by men in suits. It all felt like a call to arms, igniting a passion she had never fully understood until now. In the small town square, where the air crackled with tension, she stumbled upon an old veteran named Mr. Hayes. His weathered face was a map of stories untold. Her eyes caught his, and it was as if he saw right through her laughable dreams. "You want the truth, don't you, girl?" he asked, a gruff tone. Yet a hint of gentleness returned her gaze. Clara nodded, her dreams surged again. He became her mentor, teaching her the values of courage and loyalty, recounting tales of battles that echoed deep within her soul. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As Clara dug deeper, her findings started drawing attention around town. The connections between factory conditions, labor struggles, and McKinley's decisions revealed a conspiracy that cut to the bone. But with the truth came risk. Her family's reputation, her father's dignity, all could be threatened by what she uncovered. She felt the weight of their struggles, clashing with her need to stand for justice. That night, she stood before her neighbors, their faces taut with skepticism. "You can't silence the truth," she cried, her voice shaking but fierce. A childhood friend challenged her violently in the silence that followed, accusations puncturing the air, and Clara staggered back. But instead of crumbling under the weight of their disapproval, she breathed deep, channeling her father's resilience, ready to risk everything for what she believed. The thrill of the truth surged through her, an intoxicating realization that their narratives could change the course of history forever. She stood at a precipice, poised to confront not just her dreams, but the heart of her community's future, knowing that in revealing the darkest facets of their past, she might also offer the hope of a brighter tomorrow. Clara Donovan was ready to reclaim her story. Would the town be ready for the truth she dared to unveil? Clara stood at the edge of a monumental decision. As murmurs faded into the background, she could feel the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. It was as if the very walls of her small town were leaning in, waiting to hear what she would say next. She had gathered her courage, fueled by the letters that wrapped around her heart like a noose. But now, with every face turned toward her, doubt began to seep in. "Do you really believe this?" a voice called out, breaking the tense silence. It was Martha, a longtime friend, her brow knit in concerned disbelief. "What you're suggesting It could tear our community apart. Clara's heart pounded. But it could bring us together. Knowing the truth will help us fight for a better future. Her voice was filled with desperation, echoing against the cold bricks of the old town hall. The crowd shifted uneasily, whispers creeping through like a chilling wind. Clara could sense their fear, soaking into the air around her like fog. They were afraid of confrontation, of what the truths might mean for their lives. But Clara knew that ignorance would blink in the face of the coming storm. The words raced in her mind, urging her to push forward. McKinley and his associates, they made deals at our expense. Families are suffering while they grow fat. She felt the tremor beneath her conviction. The crowd shifted again, sympathy battling with disbelief as her pleas hung in the air. Suddenly, Mr. Hayes stepped through the throng, his presence commanding immediate attention. Clara watched as he faced her, eyes glinting, deeply understanding the struggle that lived within her. To speak the truth is a brave thing, Clara, he said, his voice a low rumble. But remember, truths have a price. Are you ready for what comes next? His words hung between them, as sharp and piercing as the chill of the wind. Clara gulped down her fear, resolved. We can't let fear dictate our future. If we stand together, maybe, just maybe, we can push for change. Another voice piped up. But change is dangerous. What if it doesn't lead to anything? What if we lose everything? The fear was palpable, but so was the fire in Clara's heart. She raised her hands, palms out. I know it's risky. I know the truth can hurt. But without it, how will we ever find hope? She locked eyes with Martha again. You've seen the factories, the despair. We need to lift the veil. There are children starving, workers suffering. The truth can fuel our fight. The crowd buzzed, and Clara's chest tightened as faces around her softened into expressions of contemplation. The flicker of resolve sparked in some eyes, the start of a collective awakening. Maybe she could reach them one heart at a time. Hope pulsed through her, igniting the shadows of doubt surrounding the assembly. Will you stand with me? Just as my father did when he faced the relentless machines of our town? For a moment, silence enveloped the square, and all Clara could hear was the pounding of her own heart. Then, without warning, someone stepped forward, a newcomer nobody recognized. The mystery figure, cloaked beneath a dark hat, looked from Clara to the crowd, face obscured. You dare challenge what they want you to forget? The figure rasped, voice slithering through the air. You don't know the depth of the danger that comes with your truth. Gasps filled the square, a striking chill replacing the warmth of community they had shared mere moments ago. Clara's stomach knotted as she faced this stranger. What did they know? Would they really risk everything for the truth? And suddenly the stakes felt higher than ever. What truths were hidden, lurking in the shadows, ready to be uncovered? Clara's mind raced. The figure had unnerved her. She took a deep breath, trembling but resolute. There's more to this than I can see, she thought, her heart thumping louder still. Could this be the beginning of something larger, something much more dangerous? With every uncertain step forward, Clara realized her story was only just beginning to unravel, threads weaving between the past and the present. What lay ahead would test her resolve like never before. Would she be able to uncover the hidden web without losing everything she loved? She had to know. Clara's heart raced as the figure loomed closer, the shadows deepening around them. She could feel the weight of the crowd's gaze shifting from her to the stranger, anticipation crackling in the air. Was he a messenger of dread, or one who might illuminate the path they needed? Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, a reminder that her moment stood precariously on the edge of crisis. What do you know about the truth? Clara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the terror curling in her stomach. You say there's danger? Tell us. We have a right to know. The figure hesitated, shifting slightly, eyes glinting beneath the brim of the hat. You think you seek truth, Clara, but truth can corrupt, can destroy lives. The words dripped with caution, a warning that stirred a mix of fear and intrigue among the spectators. Martha darted a quick glance at Clara, her expression a tangled mix of hope and anxiety. Maybe he's right, she whispered, taking a step back. What if uncovering this truth just makes things worse? The crowd murmured, the unease swelling like the tide. Clara felt like a ship adrift in a storm, clinging to her mission. We can't let fear dictate our choices. We can't keep hiding from the truth. The stranger snorted, a sound that echoed through the square. You think courage alone will shield you? They will come for you. People in power don't like to be challenged. What do you know about our lives? Clara shot back, her resolve solidifying. We've already been suffering. What more could we lose? An older man in the back, Tom, spoke up. What if this truth you're advocating for leads us into a trap? How can we trust you? His voice bore the weight of years spent in fear of the unknown. Clara felt the tides shifting again. I understand your fear. The truth can seem like a monster, but look where ignorance has led us. She gestured to the factories lining the horizon, the black smoke curling up like tendrils of despair. We've been living in shadows long enough. Enough! The figure's voice boomed, slicing through the chaos. You want to awaken a bear? You must be ready for the fight that comes. They won't just sit back and let you expose them. I'm ready for the fight, Clara shouted, her voice breaking through the noise like a beacon. I'll fight for my family, for our future. She felt a rush of adrenaline surge through her veins, bolstered by the fire she saw igniting in some of the villagers' eyes. Mr. Hayes stepped closer, grounding the moment. Look at Clara. She believes in something bigger. But we need more than belief, we need a plan, a way to protect ourselves from what may come. The tension hung thick as the townspeople considered the implications. What would they stand to lose? More importantly, what were they willing to fight for? Clara's breath quickened. I know this is hard, but if we work together, we can build a community strong enough to face whatever comes our way. The crowd shifted, heads nodding slowly in agreement, the air infused with a growing sense of solidarity. Yet they were still so fragile, barely grasping the enormity of their impending choice. Suddenly, the figure stepped back, revealing a glint of defiance in his eyes. Time is short. If you truly wish to unearth the truth, then prepare yourselves. The whispers of the past are louder than you think. You'll need allies and you'll need to choose wisely. Clara was about to respond when the figure turned to leave, stepping into the shadows. Be careful what you ask for, Clara. You might awaken not just monsters, but the heroes you never knew existed. As the gravity of those last words settled over her, a new resolve blossomed within. Heroes or monsters, either way, I'll find the truth, she vowed, energy pulsing through every fiber of her being. But as the dust settled around her, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a confrontation that could change everything she held dear. Who would be beside her in this fight, and what sacrifices lay ahead? With tension hanging in the air, she realized she had more questions than answers, and time was running short. Clara stood frozen in the fading light, shadows stretching like fingers across the ground. The crowd behind her buzzed with nervous energy, unsure of what to do next. It was as if the air was thick with unprocessed fear, and yet, beneath it, a spark of courage flickered alive. Clara, Martha's voice punctured the haze. What do we do now? You've stirred something in them. Are we ready for this? Taking a deep breath, Clara let her gaze sweep over her neighbors, feeling the weight of their trust. We need to meet tonight. At the old barn she paused, her heart beating faster. We'll share what we know and figure out our next steps. If there's a fight coming, we'll need everyone. Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd. Some of them shared flickers of determination, while others wore expressions filled with doubt. But Clara could see it, the tiny embers of hope igniting in their eyes. As people began to disperse, whispers surged through the square, each voice blending into a symphony of uncertainty and curiosity. Clara felt a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. The weight of responsibility pressed on her, yet somewhere deep inside, she knew that the fight ahead was necessary. For her family, for her town. That evening, when the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara made her way to the barn. The creaking door echoed her footsteps as she entered, revealing a makeshift gathering of townsfolk. They leaned against old hay bales, seated on crates, each face cast in the soft glow of lantern light. "Thank you for coming," Clara began, her voice ringing with a newfound confidence. "Tonight we face the truth not just about what lies ahead, but about who we are. If we stand together, we can challenge the fear that has ruled us for so long." From the corner, Martha raised her hand. "What if we rally for transparency? We could write to the newspapers, hold protests, get the word about this corruption out there. Maybe if we can expose it, we'll have a real chance." A chorus of voices erupted with ideas and enthusiasm. Tom suggested gathering testimonies from those who had suffered under the system. Mr. Hayes proposed creating flyers to distribute throughout the nearby towns, spreading the word about their mission. Ideas bounced back and forth like a vibrant melody. But as they spoke, Clara felt that old flutter of doubt. What if this was all just talk? What if they couldn't withstand the backlash that was sure to come? Yet, when she looked around, she saw the resolve in her neighbors' faces, determined, steadfast. They were ready to make sacrifices. They wanted change. In that moment, Clara felt a chill race up her spine, a mix of fear and anticipation. "Okay," she finally said, her voice steady. "Let us not just prepare for a fight. Let us prepare for the truth. It won't be easy, but it's time to open those doors and let the light in." The crowd erupted into cheers, the power of their decision pulsing in the air. Laughter mingled with the tension, an electric mix of certainty that warmed Clara from within. She might have taken a step into the unknown, but they were stepping together. But as they continued to discuss plans, Clara felt a nagging thought tugging at her, a quiet voice that dared to seep into the celebration. What if the truth they were looking for was more intertwined with their lives than they dared to imagine? What if uncovering it meant facing more than just the oppressive power they sought to confront? As the night wore on, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something monumental. Little did they know just how deep the layers of secrecy ran. Who would step forward from the darkness to stand with them? And what sacrifices awaited in this journey to uncover their reality? With her heart pounding in her chest, Clara understood that their fight was only just beginning. She would have to muster every ounce of strength she had. The shadows outside whispered promises of uncertainty. The barn buzzed with energy and shared purpose. But as Clara scanned the faces around her, she felt a swell of unease knotting in her stomach. They all looked up to her, and she could see the earnest determination mingling with fear in their eyes. This was not a fight she had anticipated leading, yet here she was. "Okay, let us organize." She flicked her gaze across the group, landing on Bo, leaning against a beam, a determined edge to his jaw. "Bo, could you take point on the testimony gathering? You know everyone in town, and they trust you." He nodded, pushing himself upright. "Absolutely. Let us start compiling stories. We can visit those who suffered most." "Great. And what about the flyers, Mr. Hayes?" Clara asked, her voice growing stronger. The ideas began to flow naturally now, connecting the community. "I can handle that. We'll need to put out a call for help. Find someone who can design them quickly," Mr. Hayes replied, excitement creeping into his tone. "Clara." It was Martha again, her hand shooting up in the air. "What if we set up a meeting with the newspaper? We could present our ideas and ask for their support." "That's a fantastic idea," Clara beamed. Encouraged by the group's enthusiasm, she felt the doubts start to fade. "We'll need to align on a message. Something that resonates." As the group discussed strategies, Clara felt an exhilarating rush. They were unearthing potential. And then came the thought that sent a chill cascading down her spine. What if the message they wanted to send was buried under layers of fear and consequence? What ripple effect could one act of solidarity create? Just then, the barn's old doors creaked open, letting in a gust of cool night air. The flickering lanterns cast exaggerated shadows, flickering ominously on the walls. Everyone turned to see who had entered. A figure slipped in, cloaked in darkness. It was Jake, a local mechanic known for his strong hands and soft-spoken nature. Clara felt her heart race, unsure what had prompted his late arrival. He usually shied away from gatherings, staying in the background. "Sorry I'm late," Jake said, stepping into the light. His nervous smile faded into apprehension as he surveyed the crowd. "I've been thinking about everything." Clara hesitated, sensing the weight behind his words. "What do you mean?" With a sigh, he shifted his weight. "You know I work for the mayor, right? Well, I've overheard some things that might put this whole plan at risk." A hush fell over the barn, the tension simmering just beneath the surface. Clara's heart pounded. What hidden truths was Jake about to expose? "Are you sure?" she asked, leaning in closer. "What have you heard? We need to know everything." Jake took a deep breath, glancing nervously at the others before continuing. "There's more going on than we think. The mayor isn't operating alone. There are others involved, people we trust, people we see every day." Clara felt the air shift. Could this be the revelation that flipped everything upside down? "What do you mean?" Her voice barely escaped her lips, overwhelmed by the tension in the room. "I can't say too much yet, but think of it like this fight isn't just against the mayor. It's bigger. People are complicit, and if we go public, some of them might retaliate." Gasps erupted from the crowd. Clara's mind raced. Could this corruption creep deeper into her community? Would it touch the people she loved? "We need proof," she declared, a fire igniting in her soul. "We need to be ready for whatever comes." In that moment, Clara realized the shadows were closing in, thicker than before. This was no longer just about change. It was about unveiling hidden truths that could turn allies into enemies. What had they truly awakened? The night felt heavier, and as their whispers grew, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that danger lurked just beyond their threshold, waiting patiently. What would Jake's revelations mean for their fight? As they huddled together, she wondered just how deep the betrayal ran in their small town. And as the barn doors creaked again in the chill, Clara braced herself for the storm ahead, knowing they might not be alone in their struggle after all. Clara glanced around the barn, feeling the energy shift with Jake's revelation. The air was thick with uncertainty, each person wrestling with their fears and hopes. The flickering lanterns seemed to dance nervously with them. "Okay," she said, trying to regain control. "We need to tread carefully. If Jake's information is correct, our community's loyalties may be tested." Martha stepped forward, her brows furrowed in concern. "But what can we do? If there are people within our own townsfolk who are involved, how do we protect ourselves? How do we move forward?" I don't know," Clara admitted, her heart sinking. "But we have to get to the bottom of this. We can't just sit back. We need allies we can trust." Bo crossed his arms tightly, his jaw tense. "What if they're watching us right now? What if there are spies in this very room?" "That's a risk we have to accept," Clara replied, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. "But we can't let fear dictate our actions. We'll be one step ahead. We'll gather evidence, talk to everyone we can, and find those who are willing to speak out. Safety first," Jake cautioned, his gaze darting toward the open barn doors. "Any hint that we're probing too deep could turn dangerous." Clara nodded, acknowledging the weight of his words. "Let South keep this close to our hearts for now. We'll operate under the radar." She could feel the resolve in the room, a flicker of light cutting through the heavy shadows. People began to murmur about who could be involved, and Clara's heart raced. What if someone she knew and cared about was part of this corruption? Just the thought made her stomach twist. "Let us split into two groups," she suggested. "One to talk to the most affected families, the other to gather thought leaders in the community, business owners, people with influence." "Good idea," Bo replied, his tone firm. "I can grab a couple of the guys to help me, just to get a feel for where people stand." "Great. And I'll work on that connection with the newspaper," Mr. Hayes added, looking more energized by the second. As plans formed, Clara felt the adrenaline surge. A part of her longed for action, to galvanize this fire into something bigger and greater. Yet, a nagging worry hung back like a shadow, wondering if they were ready for the storm they were brewing. Just then, the seemingly calm world outside shattered. A loud crash echoed from somewhere beyond the barn. Clara's heart dropped as the group fell silent, all eyes darting towards the door. Was that? Martha started, looking pale. Let us check it out, Clara whispered, her pulse quickening. We can't let fear stop us. She led the way outside, the others trailing closely behind her. The cool night air hit Clara, crisp and sharp. The moon bathed everything in silvery light, but it left the deeper corners cloaked in darkness. As they stepped out, Clara's breath caught in her throat. The town square was alive with commotion. Shadows moved among the buildings, and she could hear angry shouting, voices rising in conflict. Stay close, she instructed, her heart racing faster than she ever thought possible. They slowly crept towards the center, the palpable tension making the hairs on her arms stand up. What had they stepped into? Just then, a figure broke free from the fray, running straight toward them, eyes wide with panic. Clara squinted, adrenaline sparking her instincts. It was a young woman from town, one Clara recognized. Clara, you have to help. They're trying to silence us. A shiver ran down Clara's spine. What was happening in her town? And were they already too late to stop the collapse? As the crowd around them began to swell, Clara felt the enormity of the moment. Was this the start of something even more dangerous? Everything in her pushed her to act, but she couldn't shake the fear of what was unfolding before her eyes. Would they find strength in this chaos, or would it be their undoing? The night had only just begun, but its path was unclear, filled with potential peril. What answers were waiting in the shadows? The world felt precariously off balance. As Clara squared her shoulders, ready to face whatever came next, Clara's heart pounded in her chest as she pushed through the chaos. The young woman's frantic eyes were a mirror of her own fear. What do you mean, silence us? Clara asked, trying to keep her voice steady. They're out to control the truth. The woman gasped between breaths. They want to shut us down before we gather enough evidence against them. The rumors are true. There are people in this town involved in something horrible. The words clung to the air, heavy with implication. Clara looked back at her friends, their faces equally strained. She could see in their eyes the same determination that roused her spirit. Who? Bo's voice cut through the din, urgency lining his features. Who's behind this? The woman hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting shadows to emerge from the alleys. I shouldn't say, but I heard them mention names people we all know. Just last week, they tried to intimidate some locals who were questioning things too loudly. You need to be careful. Intimidate? Martha echoed, her brow knit with concern. Like with threats? Yes. In broad daylight, they think they can scare us into silence. The young woman's lip quivered, and Clara sensed her fear was more than just a fear for herself. It was a fear for all of them. Just then, a loud crash resonated from the center of the square, drawing every eye. Clara felt her stomach twist. What now? She murmured, keeping her voice low. Stay here, Jake urged. We need to protect ourselves first. But Clara couldn't remain idle. No, we need to find out what's going on. This could be our chance. She pushed forward, and her friends reluctantly followed. The closer they got, the more the shouting became indistinguishable, a mixture of panic and rage. The sight that awaited them in the center of the square was breathtaking in its horror. A crowd had gathered, faces twisted in anger, while several townsfolk were trying to protect a man lying on the ground. Clara recognized him, Mr. Jenkins, the always knowledgeable shopkeeper. His shirt was torn and he appeared dazed. Let him go, someone yelled into the fray, but the crowd surged. Clara's pulse quickened. These weren't just town folks. They were drawn in by the fear of losing their safety, their homes, their very way of life. She grabbed Bo's arm, her thoughts racing. What if they attack him because he knows too much? Then we need to get him out of here, Bo replied, his voice tense. Jake nodded, his expression grim. Let us move. Together, they pushed into the throng, Clara's determination bolstered by the need to protect not just Mr. Jenkins, but their community. But as they drew closer, a voice rang out, a voice laced with authority. Step back. He is a threat. Clara's gaze snapped toward the source of the voice. A man in a dark coat, flanked by several others, stood glaring at the crowd. He exuded power, and fear rippled through the townsfolk around him. "Why?" Clara yelled, forcing way through the bodies. "What threat does he pose? He has done nothing wrong." The man's eyes landed on her, narrowing as a sly smile crossed his face. "Ah, Clara, our little community spokesperson. But you don't know everything, do you? There are things better left unsaid." An electric tension surged between them, pulling the crowd taut. Clara could see confusion and concern on the faces of her friends. They were stuck in a moment that felt impossibly fragile. "What have you done?" Clara pressed, refusing to let up. "Why are people scared? This isn't how our town is supposed to be." "What is supposed to be is not always what is," he replied coolly, his voice like ice. "And if you're smart, you'll start wondering about the truth behind those you call friends." The man's words hung in the air, laden with meaning. Clara felt a shift beneath her skin. Was it possible that the roots of betrayal ran deeper than she could imagine? The crowd stirred anxiously around her, and she felt the enormity of the moment pressing down heavily. Just as she was about to speak again, a commotion erupted behind her, drawing her attention away. A figure emerged from the shadows, and Clara's breath caught once more. It was a familiar face, one she never expected to see in this chaos. Why were they here, and what did they know? Was this a twist of fate or a dangerous game? Clara's heart raced as she realized there was no turning back now. The questions loomed, and each second felt like a lifetime as she prepared to confront the truth, whatever that truth may be. What secrets were hidden in the lives of those she thought she knew? The figure stepped into the faint light, and Clara's pulse quickened. It was her old neighbor, Mrs. Thompson. The woman had moved away years ago, but Clara could still picture her, the soft wrinkles around her eyes, the way she always offered freshly baked cookies to the kids who played on the street. "Mrs. Thompson?" Clara's voice broke through the chaos, catching everyone's attention, including the dark-coated man. "I didn't know if I'd find you here," Mrs. Thompson said breathlessly, her hands trembling at her sides. Clara could see anxiety etched across her face. "I was just passing through. I heard the yelling. What are you doing here?" Clara instinctively stepped closer. The tension around them felt electric, as if the very air crackled with unspoken truths. "I heard things," she admitted, glancing nervously at the man in the coat. "Things from old friends. About Mr. Jenkins. She hesitated, looking down at her feet, people looking to silence anyone who knows too much. The crowd shifted, whispers rippling amongst them like a wave. Clara's heart raced. "What do you know? You need to tell us." Mrs. Thompson took a deep breath, her gaze steadying on Clara's eyes. "Remember how people used to talk about the factory? About what they were dumping into the river? They didn't just scare folks into silence, they covered their tracks." "Covered their tracks?" Bo echoed, pushing his way forward. "What do you mean?" "There are reports. Whispers of something more serious than just pollution." She bit her lip. "People they've disappeared, Clara. People who ask too many questions." Clara felt the world tilt around her. Disappearances? She'd always thought those were just rumors. Wild tales spun to keep children in line. But Mrs. Thompson's face told a different story, one of dread and regret. Suddenly, the man in the dark coat stepped closer, his eyes darting around the crowd. "You really shouldn't listen to her," he said, a dangerous smile creeping across his face. "This town doesn't need more stories to stir fear." "Fear?" Clara shot back, her blood boiling. "Or truth?" She turned back to Mrs. Thompson. "What else do you know?" "Enough to know that staying quiet won't keep you safe," Mrs. Thompson replied, her voice dropping to a whisper that felt like a lifeline tangled in the chaos. "Trust what you believe, and trust that some people are willing to go to great lengths to protect their secrets." The dark-coated man's expression darkened. "You really think you know everything? You've only scratched the surface." He leaned in closer, his voice almost conspiratorial. "There are far worse things hidden here than your friend lying on the ground. Do you truly believe you can just waltz in and change it all?" Clara's heart pounded. Was he taunting her? Or warning her? She could feel the weight of his gaze, the challenge buried in his words. "Why should we trust you?" Jake interjected, stepping protectively in front of Clara and the others. "You don't care about this town or anyone in it." "Care is a subjective term," the man replied, shrugging. "But I've been around long enough to see how these stories play out. They always end badly for the heroes." Clara's mind raced. Why was fear always so paralyzing? Why did the truth suffocate under the weight of lies? She could feel the air prickling, filled with a suffocating tension that pressed against her chest. And then, as if the universe chose that instant for revelation, a loud crash echoed again from the side street, followed by frantic voices. The crowd turned, and Clara's stomach dropped. "What now?" she whispered, dread seeping back into her bones. As the panic churned around her, she knew one thing. They were on the brink of uncovering something monumental, but at what cost? What other truths lay hidden, ready to erupt if they dared to push forward? And who would protect them when the tide of darkness began to rise? Clara felt the crowd shift, a murmur rising like a tide as people turned to see what had caused the crash. The man in the dark coat stepped back, his earlier bravado faltering as shadows deepened in his eyes. A knot formed in Clara's stomach. She instinctively grabbed Beau's arm, feeling the tension curling between them like a coiled spring. "Stay close," she whispered, heart racing as she steadied her breath. The crashing noise sounded closer now, and with it came the icy grip of fear that spurred her forward, pushing through the crowd. What was that? Someone shouted, their voice laced with confusion. Clara's gaze darted left, where she glimpsed a glimmering white shape lying crumpled atop the asphalt near the old supermarket. Heart racing, she edged closer to get a better look as they approached. The reality of the situation unfolded into a stark, horrifying image. There lay not just debris, but a man, sprawled awkwardly on the ground, his face bruised and bloodied. Clara's breath caught as she recognized him. It was Mr. Jenkins. No, oh my God, what happened? Clara gasped, the crowd gasping collectively as realization hit. She felt a warmth rising in her throat, panic threatening to spill over. Mrs. Thompson rushed to the front, her wrinkled features taut with concern. "Someone call an ambulance," she shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "It's too late for that," the man in the dark coat sneered, his grin transforming into something sinister. "The game is already in motion. It's best you all leave now." "Leave?" Jake shot back, the fight flaring up in his eyes. "Are you nuts? We can't just walk away. He needs help." Clara turned to the man, her hands clenched into fists. "Who did this? Why is he hurt? What did you know?" The man shrugged, a careless indifference blanketing his features. "You're simply too curious for your own good, Clara." Suddenly, a voice split through the air, sharp and demanding. It was Officer Reynolds, looking grave as he elbowed his way through the crowd. "Step back. Make way." With his arrival, panic morphed into urgency. Clara felt the crowd retreat slightly, allowing room for the officer and others to assess the situation. Clara's heart sank as she caught sight of Mr. Jenkins' stillness, a stark contrast to the rising panic of those around him. He can't be," she stammered, her voice barely escaping her lips. "There's something bigger at play," Mrs. Thompson murmured, echoing Clara's shocked thoughts. "We have to find out what he knew. If they hurt him, what are they capable of doing to us?" Clara swallowed hard, her mind racing. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide. Yet something deeper rooted inside her compelled her to stand her ground. She had to know the truth no matter the consequence. The night was shifting, shadows playing tricks on her mind, and the chill in the air suddenly felt more like a warning. "Stay here," Officer Reynolds ordered, kneeling beside Mr. Jenkins. "We need to keep this area secure. Nobody leaves until we figure out what just happened." His words sliced through the air, tightening the grip of uncertainty around them. Clara glanced back at the man in the dark coat. He had become a figure of both threat and mystery, an obstacle between them and the truth. "Listen," Clara shouted suddenly, her voice rising above the whispers. "If anyone knows anything, now is the time to speak up. We can't let fear silence us anymore. The crowd shifted uneasily, but Clara could see flickers of agreement, the glimmers of a collective decision brewing among them. Something shifted in the air as more people began to step closer, emboldened by her words. What do we really know? Bo asked, a fire igniting behind his eyes. What are we willing to fight for? As apprehension filled the space, Clara's heart raced with equal parts fear and determination. But as shadows melted into the night, Clara knew one thing: there were depths they needed to plumb, questions ready to surface. And from that darkness might emerge the very truth they so desperately sought. Will we confront whatever lies ahead? Clara wondered silently, knowing the answer could determine their fate. Clara stood firm at the heart of the gathering, the tremors of uncertainty swirling around her like a tempest. Mr. Jenkins lay still, a reminder of the stakes they faced. The man in the dark coat snickered, veins brimming with the confidence of power. The situation must change, and it had to start now. Together, Clara yelled, the word ringing out like a bell, slicing through the hesitance that threatened to suffocate hope. We can't let fear overshadow the truth any longer. If we're going to unite our voices, we can't back down. Eyes burned with determination, the crowd drew closer, a palpable energy igniting as people started stepping forward, the shadows of fear lifting just slightly. Clara's right, cried Bo. We can't let what happened to Mr. Jenkins, what happened to us, be in vain. We stand for each other. This is our call to action. The crowd murmured, then quieted, tension hanging thick as they searched one another's expressions. Those glimmers of fear now showed hints of fire. Clara's heart raced not just from fear, but from a sense of purpose, a collective resolve forming among the townsfolk. Let us do it for Mr. Jenkins, Martha added, her voice steady, and for everyone who deserves to have their voices heard. Let us gather the evidence, will make it known. As murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, Clara felt it. A shift. Hope and courage coursed through them, binding them closer together regardless of past differences. Just as the air thickened with possibility, a commotion erupted. Officers scurried around Mr. Jenkins, their voices a medley of urgency and authority. Call for backup, one shouted. Clara turned to the dark-coated man. He was visibly unsettled now, stepping back, eyebrows knit in concern. Enough, he barked, trying to regain control. This isn't your fight. On the contrary, Clara shot back, her resolve hardening. It is exactly our fight, and we're not backing down. With resolve, she stepped forward, leading her friends. We will gather evidence, ask questions, and uncover the truth behind Mr. Jenkins' attack. We won't let it slide into the shadows again. The townsfolk rallied around her, and with that surge of collective energy, they began making a plan, their disbelief transforming into advocacy. Officer Reynolds stood firm amid the rising voices, knocking gently on the ground with no response at first. Clara could see him struggling with the tumult, pleased with their willful tenacity but unsure of the boundaries. We need to maintain calm, he said, glancing at Clara, his eyes holding a flicker of respect. But I can already see the truth. You want change. Just be careful. This town is worth the fight, officer. Clara replied resolutely, people here know far more than they're willing to share. And we will shine the light on that truth. As she spoke, she sensed the weight of collective memories rising around them, stories of struggle, resentment, and heartbreak weaving into something powerful, ready to be unleashed. As whispers turned into dialogue, she caught sight of a woman standing on the edge, an elderly neighbor, with eyes filled with understanding and sorrow. I once fought too, she said, stepping forward. We can band together for change, but we must hold the truth dear and protect each other as we do. Clara nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. It was true. This community, once fragile, slowly mended itself through the strands of loyalty, resilience, and harmony. Moments passed with thrilling momentum, and soon they began spreading out across the town, forging alliances with families and sympathizers alike. Each story shared added a layer, a new brick in their collective foundation. Clara felt a weight lift. They were no longer alone, nor would they be silenced. Slowly, People began to realize that addressing their fears would only fortify their hopes. Clara led them, meeting with families who had experienced intimidation, encouraged by the tireless stories of their pain. Mr. Hayes stood stalwart beside her every step, swaying compassionately between conversations. As the days piled on, solid proof embodied their determination, culminating in a move to organize a protest. They filled the streets with truth flyers fluttering ever so proudly, mouths keen on justice. Clara's heart raced each time a new face joined them, communities merging in solidarity. At the local gathering, Clara spoke from her heart. We are no longer afraid to stand for our values. This is our town, our home. Together we will reclaim our stories and redefine our narrative. We won't shy from the truth any longer. The energy rippled through the crowd, faces lit with the dawning light of hope. The narrative shifted. The fear that once held them now transformed into a vibrant canvas of conviction. In the distance, Clara spotted the figure clad in shadows, lingering as if waiting for the right moment to strike. But she understood now. She was no longer alone. The community stood ready, intertwined like the finest threads of fabric, prepared to face whatever dark forces might come. Together, they would illuminate the truth, come what may. The strength of shared stories ignited in the people would rise. And with that, Clara realized it was only just the beginning. They had awoken the heroes within themselves, ready to face the storms swirling on the horizon. United, they would forge ahead, so Clara called from the depths of her heart. Stand with me. The truth is our strength. Together, they cheered, a sweet sound of solidarity echoing against the faded backdrop of their town. In that moment, Clara embraced the beauty of transformation. They were not only changing the course of their own lives but also illuminating the path for those who followed. It was the extraordinary realization that they could reshape their own histories. With their hearts full, hope buoyed them, shining bright enough to dispel any lingering doubts. This was it, their story, their truth, their moment. As the sun began to set that evening, Clara breathed in deep, a radiant smile breaking across her face. The shadows may come again, but she had found her guiding light, and it was just getting started. Now, if you felt this story of unity, courage, and transformation, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't wait not even one more second to support our journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show that you care about these stories. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let's keep the conversation alive. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this transformation too. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Together we rise.